It's like an end of an era. Disney contemplating whether or not to keep The View after ratings are down some 43% from the election. And look, basically, it is nothing but, if you ask me, a wing of the Democrat Party. Here's Whoopi today.
They're just looking at a system that seems like it only benefits the people who are in power.
I'm going to say,
what precedent does that set?
Well, here's what it sets. It's a precedent for all of us to open our eyes because we've elected someone who is in a similar situation, who didn't have a drug problem, who knew what he was doing, who clearly stood and said, I can do this.
Interesting logic. Comparing the president-elect to Hunter Biden. Wow. I mean, the whole thing just smacks of, well, you know what, especially given what happened with this pardon. This pardon that coming over the weekend, 24 hours after Kash Patel is nominated to run the FBI after Biden told us over and over again he wouldn't do this?
And have you ruled out a pardon for your son?
Yes.
Yeah, right. Okay, there's that little thing. And then, of course, the Kash Patel thing. And what do you know? Georgie Porgy here over at Hollywood Central is suddenly feeling as though he got used by none other than one Barack Obama to try and take down Biden. We're going to talk about all of this. Welcome, everyone, to a jam-packed show. Make sure you subscribe, share, like. What a weekend. I mean, I nearly had to come on air with you guys this weekend. I was like, if there's one more thing, I was tweeting a lot, more than normal, actually, because it was like one thing after another. We won't even get to all of it today. We're going to do a few stories tomorrow, like Roosevelt Hotel. The Roosevelt Hotel getting, $225 million by the taxpayers of New York City. The government is paying the Roosevelt Hotel, which happens to be owned by the Pakistani airline, which just happens to be owned by the government of Pakistan. We're going to save that one till tomorrow, plus more debanking things. But we got to start here first on all that's happening at The View, because increasingly now Disney seems to be making the decision that it's just not worth it. Like, why do you want this much headache? Why do you want the likes of Whoopi Goldberg and Joy Behar running you into all kinds of trouble when they effectively are nothing but a wing of the Democrat Party? I want to play for you the full soundbite. Somehow, Whoopi Goldberg is now trying to equate with some bizarre logic that actually, frankly, doesn't even make sense. Let me know if you can make sense of this one. She's trying to equate the president-elect Donald Trump and his experience with that of Hunter Biden's. Here we go.
Respect it as a parent. I understand why he would do it,
yeah.
But I wonder to understand why lie about it for so long.
I'd stop calling it a lie.
Okay, why repeatedly say you're not going to and you do? And secondarily, for the part of this country, half of it that doesn't support Biden, doesn't know him personally, doesn't get to have phone calls, and they're just looking at a system that seems like it only benefits the people who are in power.
I'm going to say,
what precedent does that set?
Well, here's what it sets. It's a precedent for all of us to open our eyes because we've elected someone who is in a similar situation, who didn't have a drug problem, who knew what he was doing, who clearly stood and said, I can do this. And he did it. So I think, for many, many reasons, this is very different than any other situation that we have ever dealt with.
I mean, that one's a stretch, I gotta say, like even for her. And by the way, kudos to the brunette there that's making the point very rightly that this doesn't really sit well with the majority of Americans who already believe that somehow the odds are stacked against them with a really corrupt system. We have more on that coming up. It's exactly the point, by the way, that Donald Trump made, and perhaps why he's going to actually pardon the J6 people that are in jail right now. But before we do, think about how they were trying to grease the wheels for all of this. Even as recently as this Thursday and Friday, if you watch the show, they were already on The View talking about how it was so important that, and understandable, if you would, that Joe Biden would pardon his son. Here's Sonny Houston on Friday.
One of the issues that I have is when you look at the charges that Hunter Biden was indicted on, less than 0.09% of the population is are indicted on that charge. And so it's basically close to zero. So I actually think that the only reason he was indicted is because his last name is Biden. So if you look at it like that, right, if you look at it like that, then it is the right thing to do to correct course and correct that wrong and pardon his son. The other piece of this is Hunter Biden has acknowledged his addiction. Yeah. He is an addict. And in the law, you know, there are all sorts of ways to handle people that commit crimes because of their addiction. There are drug deferment programs. Mm-hmm. And he should be someone that should be treated a bit differently because of the addiction. And I would support not only, I think, his pardon on the illegal gun application one, but the other one in California as well.
Okay. So thanks to our friends over at Newsbusters for pulling that clip. Interestingly, what is important for you to understand and for in terms of like why Disney would ever want to keep this program, which increasingly now they do not, we have learned. The reason they don't want to keep it is because, again, basically it's coming from the White House to The View. So what Sunny Houston was basically saying is an exact version of what Joe Biden tweeted out over the weekend. So clearly they were telegraphing a message to The View. Sunny has it right there on set. She's giving the same verbiage that you're going to hear in just a minute from Joe Biden over the weekend. And then on top of that, she's doing the drug thing like, oh, for example, he shouldn't be responsible for his actions because he was addicted, which is exactly what Whoopi was trying to say today. I mean, this is bizarre. This is really bizarre. And then on top of that, of course, Whoopi had to take it one step further and say somehow that because Donald Trump doesn't suffer from those addictions, that somehow he's more guilty of something that, by the way, they just had to throw out of court. What do you think just happened with the whole Mershon thing? They can't move forward with this prosecution because they don't even have a case. Alvin Bragg never even wanted to bring that case initially. So they are increasingly sort of running themselves into trouble. And I'm going to get to it, but let me just jump ahead for a second because I think it is worth noting here just exactly the language of the pardon, right? So Joe Biden coming out over the weekend saying, hey, you know what? I'm going to pardon him. And by the way, I'm going to pardon him for everything, like for 10 years. For 10 years, because he's terrified that Kash Patel and Donald Trump might go after him for not having registered as a lobbyist and accepting money from all those foreign nations. But he also says basically that, you know, this wasn't fair, it wasn't reasonable. In other words, he wouldn't have had this happen to him if his last name wasn't Biden. No reasonable person, he writes, who looks at the facts of Hunter's cases can reach any other conclusion than Hunter was singled out only because he is my son, and that is wrong. Kind of just like what we had to hear from Sunny Houston. So again, they're using ABC, they are using Disney to try and channel a bunch of information. So Disney's like, I don't think so. Like, you really want this headache right about now, especially given that you got a new head of the FCC in one Brendan Carr who's going to come in and say, hey, enough is enough. In other words, you guys are not really playing fair. But maybe it doesn't even have to get that far. So take a look at the ratings. Like, they got great ratings on election day. We can give them that. The highest ratings ever. It was like 4.7 million or something. Okay, kudos to you. The day after election, everybody kind of wanted to tune in to just see them cry, I guess. Like, you know, that was worth something, even for me. I watched parts of it. No one could actually, unless you're like in some kind of torture chamber, I guess, like no one could actually sit through an hour of that show willingly, but I did watch sections of it and played some of them for you. So they got their highest rated day ever. Their highest rated day when they were going on and on about how could this happen? How could he possibly win this election? We're going to just blame social media and X and all those podcasts, all those bad, like, woohoo, right over here. Make sure you subscribe, share, like. Anyway, here they are.
Why not let Fox News off the hook, please?
I don't understand.
And Newsmax and all the fake news that's been going out there. You know, one of the things that we need to do, and it's not to abolish the Department of Education. As a former teacher, believe me, he's talking about doing that.
Yes.
You know, kids I brought this up before, I'm going to bring it up again. In Finland, kids in nursery school are learning to discern between fake news and real news. Yeah. They should be teaching that in this country. Between children, tolerance, teach them to think critically.
Well, it would help if we could regulate social media, because one of the biggest offenders is D.C. and Congress have not been able to do one thing in regard to the rogue corporations of social media.
It's not going to get any better with Elon Musk now in the administration.
I mean, okay, so somehow it's social media's fault. It's somehow Elon Musk's fault. It's somehow the fault that we don't teach people to watch The View instead of, streaming news on YouTube or the Trish Regan Show or Joe Rogan or anything else, right? Like Newsmax. God help you if you watch Newsmax, Fox. They're taking aim at anything that disagrees with them. I mean, this is the funny irony of it. So guess what happens? What happens? The next day, the following week, ratings plunged from that all-time high, that big, wonderful episode that they have. And this is the headline: The View sheds post-election ratings bump on par with season averages among households and viewers. So they sunk 43.57%. So again, you say to yourself, well, hey, they're doing okay. Like, why not just keep them? Except that maybe advertisers aren't so psyched about being aligned with a show like this right about now. I mean, not that I'm into cancel culture. Don't get me wrong. I don't believe that anybody should be canceled, except for maybe these ladies. And I get some agreement from my friend Piers on that, right? The View is a pointless, irrelevant, Trump-loathing joke. Cancel it. Enough already. Like, it's too much. But I would say this: you don't want this headache as Disney. You don't want the headache as Bob Iger. Advertisers don't want the headache, so they're not going to make as much money. It isn't going to matter, even if they do manage to somehow squeeze out a rating that's on par with whatever they've done in the past. It's too challenging to have this kind of stink around you as an organization, especially when you can be more successful in terms of targeting the viewers that you want. Think about it as an advertiser, right? That's why this industry is changing so rapidly. It's why I'm so happy to be over here. I talk about this a lot, but it's important for you to understand. First of all, you're here, right? Which is huge. And I'm streaming and I'm here. And this is all very, very new to me and maybe new to you. I don't know. I mean, for my kids, they're like, finally, Mom, you made it. You're on YouTube. I'm like, really? Forget about the 20 years of mainstream media experience. That doesn't matter now, not for the kids anyway. But what's intriguing is that as an advertiser, you can actually go directly to the people that you want to get access to, because it's so much more specific. And so you don't really want to be advertising on The View, because you get all the headache of that, and you're not going to be getting that targeted audience that really, as an advertiser, you should so desire. It's why Disney wants out of this, and it's why Joy Behar is getting so frustrated. We're ABC News, she's claiming. Yeah, like that, and $5 will get you a latte these days. Joy Behar is saying, look, I just don't understand why anybody would be watching anything else. I mean, Joe Rogan, forget about it. This is her big, he believes in dragons thing. Some of you have seen this before, but you just have to watch, because the irony here going on, like what she doesn't get is that nobody trusts ABC News. Yes, they trust Joe Rogan a whole lot more, who, by the way, was having an in-depth conversation with some kind of science environmental guy who was talking about the fascination that human beings have had for thousands and thousands of years with dragons. Anyway, here we go.
People want us divided, and they aren't just here in this country. They're foreign adversaries who are infiltrating our social media, because it is prudent for us to stay that way. So when you see something that really pisses you off, you should triple check that one.
Yeah. But I think that's why people like our show, because they know that we are checked by ABC News. But
we're checked by everybody.
Yeah. I mean, if we're wrong, we have, the legal note here.
The human legal note.
But we went from Walter Cronkite, basically, to this guy, Joe Rogan, who believes in dragons. I checked it. He believes in dragons? He believes in dragons.
Did you triple source that?
Yes, I did. And he also thinks that dragons, like dinosaur-y type of animals, roamed the earth when people did. So this is the type of really, really bad information that's going out there.
Well, in defense, there are some really good news.
It's possible that Donald Trump did roam the earth when dinosaurs were here.
There are some really good news kind of influencer types, and I think it's great that they're getting information about global and current events in front of younger people who maybe don't tune into traditional media. But to Sarah's point, there has to be some fact checking and actually verification of the things that are shared, because I spend a lot of time on Instagram Reels, and I'm served up things that I get outraged about, and then I realize, oh, that's not even true, but I have the sense to go and look it up. But what I do worry about with this, like the Blue Sky versus X, because a lot of people I follow on X, Twitter, have now left to go to Blue Sky, I worry we're all going into our own echo chamber. So we had this, this election that was tense. Donald Trump won, and the right is going to stay on X, and then the left is
clearly are all in your own echo chamber, are you not? And what's amazing is that the mainstream media has been in this echo chamber over and over and over again, telling us over and over and over again how bad Donald Trump was. And guess what? America just had a giant FU, right? They just elected him overwhelmingly. That was quite a mandate, no matter what they try and tell you on The View. As for Joe, like, he fired back. It was actually pretty funny. He had basically been having this conversation with some guy named Forrest Galante, and they were talking about dragons, and he had some kind of epiphany that, basically there had to be some kind of large lizard-like creature, like always here, always around, because think about how humans have always, for years, for centuries, thousands of years, kind of had this as part of mythology, kind of a mythological creature. And so that's sort of his response. And he had some F-bombs in there as well. Let me see. I think I have the whole clip. I like how he says, Joe Rogan believes in dragons. She's worried. Joy Behar, she's scared.
Worried about losing your job, and you're worried about podcasts taking over, and who's the source of news. And we said Donald Trump was Hitler, but half the country disagreed with us, and he won, and this is and Joe Rogan believes in dragons.
That's great. I love that. So here are these ladies going hysterical on The View. And Bob Iger, CEO of Disney, has to be looking at that going, what do I want this for? And now he's got some backup, right? Not just from me, but like I said, from Piers Morgan. Big title in the New York Post the other day saying The View is pointless, irrelevant, Trump-loathing jokes. Just cancel it. Cancel it. Enough already. Would you? Oh, we have so much news. What the heck with this pardon? What the heck is that about? I mean, why did he sit there and lie to us and tell us over and over and over and over again that he was never going to pardon his son? I mean, the lie is what gets everyone. But before we get to that, before we get to Kash Patel, before we get to George Clooney and his fury, his absolute fury with Barack Obama, I just want to give a shout out for one of our great sponsors here on the Trish Regan Show, our friends over at American Heart for Gold. You can text my name to 65532. Just text Trish, T-R-I-S-H, to 65532 to learn more about how you might get up to $15,000 worth of free silver, or you can call them at 1-844-495-1115. Again, 844-495-1115. I do think it's really important to invest right now. We've been looking at, yesterday I just read through the Income Builder report for 76 Research that we finally put to publication, and there's just so many good ideas in there. It's one of our portfolios. We have 3 portfolios there at 76 Research. You can go to investinmaga.com to get our free guide, or you can go to 76 Research if you're interested in either the 76 Research report, or if you're interested in the model portfolios. You can see, like, our stocks have been killing it. We have 10 to 15 picks in each one of these portfolios, and I'm a big believer in the future right now. I don't think I've ever been so optimistic on the future. Our top financial pick up 37%, the second top financial pick up 35%. Basically, we're beating the S&P, as you can see, for this particular 3-month average. I encourage you to go to 76research.com. You can get the 76 report with code word dollar, or you can get the model portfolios. I mean, that's the best value. That's really the best value for you. So I created it for you with my colleague, Rob Horton, my dear longtime friend, who is a brilliant stock picker, has been on Wall Street some 20 some odd years, running billions of dollars. And now we got him over here. So I'm really trying to do what I can to make sure you guys get access to the best possible information. So let's talk about that pardon. What about that pardon? My gosh. I mean, whoa, like, this news just couldn't stop coming forward this weekend. It all comes Joe Biden pardoning his son Hunter after he insisted over and over again in multiple interviews, including this one with ABC, Disney-owned ABC, same company that owns The View, Disney-owned ABC News' David Muir.
Your son Hunter is on trial, and I know that you cannot speak about an ongoing federal prosecution. But let me ask you, will you accept the jury's outcome, their verdict, no matter what it is?
Yes.
And have you ruled out a pardon for your son?
Yes.
Or no. Depends on when you ask me that. Depends on whether or not I win the presidency or not. I mean, come on. Like, come on. I think actually America might have sort of gotten it if he had said, look, it's my son. Of course, that's going to be something that I need to think about. Instead, nope. He just sat there with a straight face and told everyone as he was going into the election, nope, I'm not going to pardon him. I'm not going to pardon him. I'm not going to pardon him. We had to listen to KJP, that crackerjack of a PR person over there at the White House, tell us over and over and over again. I mean, they must think we're stupid, right? She told us over and over and over again, no chance, no way, no how. And of course, the mainstream media, they bought it. They're like, oh, no way he would pardon, not after he told us no. And KJP told us no, right?
Second one, would the president pardon or commute his son if he's convicted?
So I've answered this question before. It was asked of me not too long ago, a couple of weeks ago, and I was very clear, and I said no.
Okay. We go back to the first question of the briefing. I know you said not a lot's changed since yesterday, and that it's a personal matter, but from a presidential perspective, is there any possibility that the president would end up pardoning his son?
No.
Again, you've also said several times that the president would not pardon or commute the sentences for his son, Hunter. I just want to make sure that that is not going to change over the next 6 months. The president's saying he would not.
It's still a no. It's still a no.
It will always be a no.
It's still a no. It will be a no. It is a no, and I don't have anything else to add. Will he pardon his son? No.
No. It's a no until it's a yes. Will he pardon his son? No. Unless he pardons his son. I mean, this is ridiculous. I mean, honestly, she shouldn't even take the question. I don't understand anybody who can do that job, frankly. I mean, especially for somebody like Joe Biden, because you just have to lie. And that's what her specialty is, clearly lying through her teeth. I mean, she could have maybe deflected, said, I don't know. It's a personal matter. I really think that you need to talk to him about that. I don't know the answer to that, blah, blah. Instead, she said, nope. He's never going to pardon him. And Joe Biden sat there, told everyone, I'm never going to pardon him. And then what do you know? Hits over the weekend. Today, I signed a pardon for my son, Hunter. From the day I took office, I said I would not interfere with the Justice Department's decision-making. I kept my word, even as I have watched my son being selectively and unfairly prosecuted. Without aggravating factors like use in a crime, multiple purchases, or buying a weapon, or a straw purchase, or people are almost never brought to trial on felony charges solely for how they filled out a gun form. Because remember, he was addicted to substances when he filled out that gun form, and he never revealed any of that. And he's like, how dare you do that? It's all because his last name is Biden. You treated Hunter differently. It's not right. The charges in his cases came about only after several of my political opponents in Congress investigated them to attack me and oppose my election. Then a carefully negotiated plea deal agreed to by the Department of Justice unraveled in the courtroom. Yeah, it unraveled. You know why? Because it's not just the gun thing, buddy, but it's all of the lobbying that he did on behalf of international clients, making millions and millions and millions of dollars for the Biden family. That's the issue. Okay, so that's why that thing unraveled. Thank goodness it unraveled. The judge, remember her? She's like, wait a second. I thought this was about the gun thing. But no, it turns out that I have to make sure that he's never, ever going to be prosecuted for all of these things that he did going way back when. I mean, that was the most bizarre part of all. And so one of the things that you need to know about in this whole entire shenanigan, charade, whatever you want to call it, is that Joe Biden went back. Let me see if I can pull this for you, because this is important to understand. He went back and he's pardoning him for like the last 10 years. I mean, this is not just like a brief little, okay, this is not about the gun thing. This is actually the whole shebang. Here we go. Look, highlighted for you. Here we are. For those offenses against the United States, which he has committed or may have committed or taken part in during the period from January 1st, 2014 through December 1st, 2024. 10 years. Okay, he pardoned him for anything he did over a 10-year span. So yeah, that's not going to sit well with people. And it shouldn't sit well with people. I mean, remember when this is good. This one is good. Remember when he tweeted this out, ladies and gentlemen, how no one is above the law? Elon kind of loves this because there were all these community notes that got put in to X. They went back in time and they looked at this. No one's above the law. This is from May 31st when they were going after Donald Trump in that Stormy Daniels alleged hush money case, which went nowhere. He tweets out so self-righteously, no one is above the law. Well, now the context is being added. On December 1st, 2024, President Joe Biden pardoned his son, Hunter Biden, for crimes covering nearly 11 years of offenses against the United States, which he has committed or may have committed or taken part of during the period from January 1st, 2014 through December 1st, 2024. And of course, if you look at this pardon, it covers the exact same time period. So apparently some people are above the law, right? Some people are indeed above the law. Look, the left is trying to justify this. That's what you saw in The View. This is why I think Disney's so tired of them, sick of them. And Nate Silver had it right. So Nate Silver is a pollster. He's one of the few pollsters that actually got this whole thing right. He's revered among many people on the left side of things because his polling does tend to be accurate. He started 538, which got bought out by ABC, and he eventually lost his job, I think after about 10 years. He started the Silver Bulletin, and he was looking at all this poll data, and he basically said early on, you guys are never going to win with Biden. And finally, they pulled in George Clooney and Obama and David Axelrod and David Plouffe. They all kind of huddled. I think they pulled in CNN's Jake Tapper too. And they kind of began the process to unseat Joe Biden. And it was all sort of started off of some of Nate's data. And Nate was putting some of this information out. And then Nate basically said, as we were getting, to the final moments there of 2024, Kamala's not going to do it either. So now he's out with this tweet. I discussed here how I voted for Harris despite feeling like Democrats indulged in a lot of bad behavior that voters were rational to publish. After the White House lying about the Hunter Biden pardon, I'm not sure how much more I can tolerate. Well, Nate, you probably shouldn't have been tolerating it to begin with. I think you were drinking the Kool-Aid a little too much because everybody else knew it was going down. More than half the country knew it was going down. They knew that this team was lying. I mean, we saw it with the laptop, right? The Hunter Biden laptop that was somehow, just Russian misinformation. If you listen to John Brennan and all the ex-CIA spooks, etc. I mean, that thing was orchestrated by the likes of Antony Blinken, now Secretary of State, and Mike Morrell, deputy director at the CIA, and they got all their spook friends to sign off on it. And they're trying to present this like it's fact. So this brings up just exactly what pardons are likely to come across the desk of one Donald Trump as the 47th president of the United States. He gave some indication of what he's intending to do. Quote, does the pardon given by Joe to Hunter include the J6 hostages who have now been imprisoned for years, such an abuse and miscarriage of justice? Yeah, a total miscarriage of justice. And yet somehow, to go back to Whoopi Goldberg and The View, and the reason why this show is not going to live too long, they're trying to somehow equate, again, Donald Trump, the newly elected president of the United States coming into office, it can't happen soon enough in January, to Hunter Biden, who clearly suffers from his own personal demons and problems and did some things that were pretty unthinkable, but also was out there making money for the whole family while his dad was vice president of the United States of America.
I respect it as a parent. I understand why he would do it. Yeah. But I wonder to understand why lie about it for so long.
I'd stop calling it a lie.
Okay, why repeatedly say you're not going to and you do? And secondarily, for the part of this country, half of it that doesn't support Biden, doesn't know him personally, doesn't get to have phone calls, and they're just looking at a system that seems like it only benefits the people who are in power.
I'm going to say,
what precedent does that set?
Well, here's what it says. It's a precedent for all of us to open our eyes because we've elected someone who is in a similar situation, who didn't have a drug problem, who knew what he was doing, who clearly stood and said, I can do this. And he did it. So I think, for many, many reasons, this is very different than any other situation that we have ever dealt with.
Did you notice how she kind of stopped mid-sentence? It's almost like one of the producers was talking to her, careful, 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 where are you going with this, Whoopi? I mean, she literally stopped what she was saying right in the middle of that conversation. So that's kind of interesting to me. I will say this, you know what? The media they've just run their course. I mean, I'm exhausted by these cable media personalities that are so entrenched with everyone at the White House, everyone on the left. It's really, frankly, pretty gross, pretty disgusting. There's no honesty in any of it. And there's no better example of it than some of the rhetoric that you saw on MSNBC. Think about this. Andrew Weissman, who led the Mueller thing, right? He was the lead prosecutor and all of that. Russia. Forgive me. Russia. He was out there on MSNBC, like touting the fact that, Biden was somehow just this stand-up citizen because he wasn't actually going to pardon his son. This did not age well, okay? Mr. Weissman, you ought to be pretty damn embarrassed by this.
What is before us is a president who is living the rule of law. He is living it in in the most personal way. He is not pardoning his son, which he could do. These are federal charges. Right. He is not doing that. He is not doing it because he is living what it means to have a rule of law in this country. Yeah. And it isn't, I mean, if you want to know if he believes it, you could actually see what is happening with his own son. I mean, I'm not saying that he should get credit for it because it is the right thing to do.
That's the norm, but Trump is beneath it. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. It's that the idea that you can't see it, or is that really what's going on? Or when you can see what he is actually living by is his own son is being prosecuted, and he is allowing the norms that are required to live in a democracy to go forward.
Okay. So that's kind of gross, right? Andrew Weissman, the Russia guy, is now on, or was on MSNBC saying, we all need to admire and respect Joe Biden because somehow he's this model citizen. He could pardon his son, but he's not going to. He wouldn't do that because, you see, he's not corrupt. Whatever, okay? Whatever. I mean, honestly, we got a nice super chat in. Thank you so much. Great to see all of you here. We have so many lovely supporters. This is Salty Up 1475, just to shout out to him. Thank you so much. We love that you're supporting independent creators. Mike Costa, I think trying to encourage you on there. Look, it's just incredibly important. Even, like I look at Fox right now, and even Fox runs the risk of being too entrenched with certain entities and certain viewpoints, right? They're the best of the bunch, if you would, and Newsmax as well. But I look at Fox, and having been there and knowing how it's run sort of from the top down, there's a lot of micromanagement, and you have all these layers and like things that you can say and things that you can't say. And the beauty, I think, of being over here is, frankly, that we have none of it. So I appreciate everything that you guys do to make this show happen. And we appreciate all our sponsorship and supports, et cetera. But including, by the way, that brings me to Balance of Nature, one of our great sponsors here on the show. We're going into December, and December is always a tough time. I eat everything in sight, right, during December, because you get lots of holidays. For one thing, I have my birthday, and then I have my kid's birthday, and then we have Christmas. So very, very exciting. And then New Year's. And so it's really hard sometimes to kind of keep one's health as front and center. And it's one of the reasons why I'm glad I take these things every day. I take my fruits and my veggies from Balance of Nature. Go to balanceofnature.com. One of the sponsors here of the Trish Regan Show. You can use code word Trish, TRISH, to get 50% off. I mean, it's the best deal I have seen. 50% off from Balance of Nature. Again, balanceofnature.com, 1-800-246-8745, 1-800-246-8745. I'll tell you this, Kash Patel is gonna change things around, assuming he gets through. And by the way, even if he doesn't fully get through, he may come in as acting FBI director. So there's a lot that he can do. I say, would he get through? Only because there are a lot of people that are really upset about this. I mean, really, really, really upset about this. They do not want Kash Patel anywhere near the FBI. Apparently they're having sobbing sessions on the phone, and they're trying to, really prevent people from leaving the FBI. By the way, I think Kash and I think Vivek and Elon would probably be pretty happy. It's like, Kash is doing the work of Doge, right? They don't actually have to go in and fire anyone because maybe they'll just leave. Anyway, this is the guy who has now been nominated by Donald Trump to run the FBI.
They accuse us of every single thing they are doing. They try to imprison our great leader illegally time and time again. They raid our houses of worship. They tell us where our children can go to school and what they should learn. Well, I don't know about you, but I want our future generation to know history, math, and economics. I don't want them to know gender fluidity at the age of 10. We have the greatest leader the Coliseum has built, and Donald J. Trump is our champion. He is our juggernaut of justice. But we have to marshalize behind them because we have the truth. They don't have that.
So that's Kash Patel. Okay, so this is the guy who's now going to be running the FBI. Again, assuming it all happens. I mean, it should, right? They get the House and they got the Senate. But like I said, there's some really funny people out there that are really worried about a few too many things. I mean, part of the reason they're so worried is because of the Epstein scandal, right? We're going to get into that. But let me just first start by saying that Kash Patel has been a loyal defender of the president. He has been a loyal defender of some of the J6 victims, who are now, I think, as history is sort of being rewritten in real time, are being looked at really increasingly as victims, that things got out of hand and for whatever reason, which doesn't really entirely seem to be the fault of the newly elected president, they did not have the proper amount of reinforcements there to prevent everything from sort of spiraling out of control. And that is believed to be in part Nancy Pelosi's fault. And then they ran with that, right? I mean, think about the fact that that documentary that was done on J6 and the footage that you were seeing over and over and over again in a loop, that was all shot by none other than Nancy Pelosi's daughter, the documentary filmmaker, Alexandra Pelosi. So she's in there with her camera. She puts the spooky music and all that stuff in there. And then they show this on national television over and over again. I'm guessing she probably made a buck on it too, because she sold it to HBO. And then somehow CNN came in and licensed it from HBO and ran it as an exclusive. This exclusive video happened to be a real case of nepotism. It was shot by the daughter of the Speaker of the House who was trying to take Trump down. So Kash Patel knows that, and he's highlighted that. And this is also going to get him into trouble. But it's not just the J6 stuff. Washington, D.C., the elites in America, Hollywood, a lot of people are really worried about this Jeffrey Epstein log list, right? Now to get into that Epstein mystery, and a lot of questions about how exactly he lost his life in that prison. There's been a whole sort of mystery surrounding that. I mean, it's believed that he took his own life, but there are a lot of questions, all right? And we don't need to get into them all now. Just know, for all intents and purposes, there are a lot of people and a lot of very powerful people that will not want Kash Patel to have this seat under any circumstances, because he's already repeatedly called for declassifying that list of clients, if you would, that were flying on the flight logs, et cetera, on Jeffrey Epstein's plane. So here he is talking to our friend Benny about this. Let me see if I can fast forward here to the part that I think is pretty good. Here he is saying, look, you gotta do something about this. And why aren't the leaders in charge doing anything?
Because of who's on that list. You don't think that Bill Gates is lobbying Congress night and day to prevent the disclosure of that list? And why is it that the Senate, and good for Senator Blackburn to try to get it out, but then Dick Durbin comes over the top and says, no, we're not going to release the names. I don't care about the list itself, but if you release the names, right? What the hell are the House Republicans doing? They have the majority. You can't get the list? You're going to accept Dick Durbin's word, or whoever that guy is, as to who is on that list and who isn't, and that it can and can't be released? Put on your big boy pants and let us know who the pedophiles are. We have an election coming up, and we need to adjudicate this matter at the polls. God knows the FBI and DOJ aren't going to do anything. But how are you going to reward the FBI with a new headquarters building after their illegal surveillance on Donald Trump continues with a reauthorization of FISA, and we can't even get basic documents out? This is why America hates Congress. And this is why I'm tired of the Republican majority saying they're going to get the job done and failing.
So watch out, right? So he wants to go in and do the job. By the way, he's talked about firing everyone at the FBI. He's like, see ya. We don't need you if you're not actually contributing to the stuff that would make America safe again. So he's out there on the curve, right? And you can imagine the angst that's building up if you watch the cable news waves. What is everybody saying? Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. What's going to happen? This guy is just too dangerous. They're saying he's worse than Pete Hegseth, who, by the way, like, they're just unearthing all kinds of things, emails from his mother. I'm like, how did you guys get an email from his mom? Wow. I mean, poor Pete. Like, it's ugly. Okay. So now get ready for the machine to come up and out against Kash Patel. And there are people in Washington that don't want to see this happen. There are people in DC. There are people on Wall Street. There are people in big business. There are people in Hollywood that don't want this all to come out. And I think he wants it. And by the way, he wants the JFK files released too. So he's like, let's just break this whole thing wide open and show how much the government has been lying to you for so many years. Well, there are people that want those lies protected. So it's going to be hard for Kash, but wow, if he gets in there, even if he can just get in his interim, right? Because nobody approves or whatever, it's going to be spectacular. We are going to learn so much, you guys, so much. Meanwhile, one person that's not happy about any of this, George Clooney. George Clooney, you see, is now blaming one Barack Obama. How did I get in this spot? He's wondering. Oh, it's Barack's fault. Here's the headline in Radar over the weekend. This one caught my eye. George Clooney fuming he was seduced. Interesting word choice. Seduced by Barack Obama into putting the boot into Joe Biden. Because you say he's now being blamed for the Trump win. In other words, Clooney, maybe if you just kept your mouth shut and didn't write that little op-ed, which I guarantee you Clooney did not write. Like, he just didn't. Somebody on Obama's team wrote that and they placed it. And then they're like, okay, well, you've lost Clooney. So when you lose Clooney, you've kind of lost the whole deal. I mean, you lost Nate Silver first. We saw the internal polling. The thing is like, they didn't do any better. Not one bit better. In fact, they probably did worse with Kamala Harris. So now Clooney is in the doghouse. Here we go. Here's the article. Activist actor George Clooney is outraged after being manipulated. Oh, see, this is his team feeding something to Radar. And the word choice is interesting, right? He was manipulated, not seduced. You save that for the title, I guess. That's the clickbait. Being manipulated by former President Barack Obama into lobbying for Kamala Harris to take faltering Joe Biden's place in the 2024 election and then getting thrown onto the bus by his one-time buddy when she lost. Quote, George is furious with Obama for disappearing after the election disaster. I'll tell you, Obama's a smart guy. If nothing else, he's a heck of a politician. Disappearing after the election disaster and leaving him holding the bag for pushing the plan with his Hollywood pals, according to a showbiz insider interviewed by Radar. Clooney, 63 years old, wrote an opinion piece in July. You, of course, recall that, calling for President Biden to drop his re-election campaign, citing his declining mental faculties, which we all saw every single day. Of course, when I said it right here on the show, somehow that was just nothing but fake news, right? They didn't believe it when Trish Regan was saying it, or any of the other podcasters out there. Ben Shapiro was all over this at Daily Wire. Rogan was all over it too. The reality is they didn't want to hear it because they wanted to manufacture the news. And whenever you showed the full clip of disaster Biden, somehow that was a problem. So Radar goes on to report a political mole told RadarOnline.com it was Obama who urged Clooney to call for Biden, his own vice president, to end his sputtering campaign, fearing the fallout if he did it himself. Yeah, well, we all knew it was Obama, did we not? Obama and Clooney have been tight for years, and George became Barack's surrogate in leading the charge for Joe to step away, explains the source. Barack knew he would look like a traitor if he publicly called for Joe to cut loose, and now he's trying to walk away from it all. Why? So his wife can run for president? In 4 years, George feels duped and vows he's not going into he's not going to be anyone's political water boy anymore. Well, good, Georgie. We are so happy that you woke up to reality. You stupid actor trying to get into the political game and getting used just like they use him over there on The View. You just got used by one Barack Obama. They're using your celebrity status. I can just say, I hope you got paid a whole lot of money for that, because it's going to hurt your career forever. Who wants to go see a George Clooney movie right now? I don't think anybody. Doesn't he have one out with Brad Pitt and nobody's watching it? And Brad Pitt's like blaming George for the bad ratings. And George is blaming Barack Obama. It's actually pretty funny. So Democrats blame game. Liberals sore losers gang up on George Clooney. Poor George. Poor Georgie. Porgy, and claim his sweary Joe Biden op-ed caused crushing Trump victory. Listen, I hate to break it to you guys, but you were never going to win. Ever. Like, it didn't matter who you put up. You were never going to win against Donald Trump. One, he's just way more sophisticated from a media standpoint. I mean, who else deals with his supporters getting called garbage and then goes out and rides a garbage truck around town? And who else sort of has the brilliance and the ability to kind of adapt on the spot in those rallies? He was talking to tens of thousands of people multiple times a day in those rallies. I mean, he gets it, right? From a sort of sophistication in terms of understanding everyday folks. He seemingly has a whole lot more in common with everyday folks than, say, one Joe Biden or one Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris, who doesn't have any inkling of the wealth that Donald Trump has. And yet she seems like the annoying elitist that's trying to kiss up to everybody all the time. Like, people just don't go for that. So you were never going to win, but it wasn't just because you had a bad candidate. Let me rephrase this. Your policies sucked. Okay? That's the reality. Your policies, is everyone on the left listening? Not many people on the left watch this show, but that's okay. They ought to, because they'd learn something. Your policies sucked. You drove mass inflation. Americans have never experienced anything like this. I mean, not since the 1970s. It's Carter 2.0. And then on top of it, we were supposed to be ashamed of who we are, who we were. Suddenly you couldn't be patriotic anymore. You couldn't fly the flag. You couldn't be rah, rah, America. Why? Because you guys said so. And you were trying to rewrite history in a way that would just make everyone obsolete. Well, it turns out people don't really like being told that they are bad just because they're American. So George Clooney, you and Amal, your lovely wife, who cares more about Gaza than she does the USA or Israel, certainly Israel. I mean, Israel's the enemy when you look at Amal Clooney. People don't like it. And they don't like your movies. So you can blame Barack, but you know what? People still blame you. And now I guess you're blaming your wife. Like, that's how scummy this guy is, in my estimation. The fact that his people are putting out this story, oh, he's trying to fix his marriage, whatever, because the marriage is on the rocks. The marriage is on the rocks. Why? Because Trump won? Because maybe you listened to your wife a little too much, who's basically a spokesperson for Gaza? I mean, hello. Here's the other headline. So George Clooney vows to do anything it takes to protect his family amid marriage on the rocks rumors. Apparently the marriage is on the rocks, and they're like roommates now, according to this headline in Radar. Maybe he's frustrated with his wife because she too had very bad political instincts, and this is some kind of blame game. I mean, they're a pretty pathetic couple, if that's what it's come down to, let me just say, okay? But I consider her rather pathetic because of some of her opinions she spouted vis-a-vis the USA, vis-a-vis Israel, et cetera, okay? Not a fan over here. I'm happy to tell you that. I don't think you had any doubt about that to begin with. But he married her, and now things are not working out for him or for her so well. So there you have it, right? There you have it. Listen, it's partly why I started 76 Research way back when with Rob, and since last spring, we've been just trying to really make sure that people are investing in good companies that have nothing to do with this DEI nonsense, because the DEI nonsense is really done. It's over, and you're not going to make money. We are a capitalist country. We are a country that believes in a meritocracy. And when you start getting away from that, you're going to have problems. A big article, by the way, in the Wall Street Journal over the weekend. I think it came out Friday or Saturday. I got a kick out of it because it's all about how companies are trying to take the DEI stuff down from their website right about now because, well, that's not really the main focus, shall we say, these days. But this is the model portfolio performance, top performing stocks. You can see the average up 7.9% versus the S&P in the same period, up 3.7%. And some of them are big winners, up 37% for some of our financial picks. Just worth a shout out. You can go and get this information at 76research.com. You can sign up for the model portfolios, or you can go to Invest in MAGA. We have a whole investing guide there free for you guys. I really, I actually think that there's going to be a lot of good stuff ahead. Markets can go up, markets can go down. You should expect that. You should always be aware of that volatility. But I think the overall trend, certainly for the last, 2 decades, it's up some 10%, the S&P 500. The overall trend, in my opinion, and in Rob's as well, is really for good things ahead, very, very good things ahead. And so that's what's exciting. And one way to hedge your portfolio, of course, and we do like gold, is to consider investing in gold. We have our friends over at American Hartford Gold. Just text Trish to 65532. They'll take care of you. You can get up to $15,000 in free silver there with American Hartford Gold. You can also call them at 844-495-1115 or go to trishlovesgold.com. trishlovesgold.com. You can't forget that, right? trishlovesgold.com. It's a health and wealth theme here. Again, as we think about going into the holidays and making sure that we all take care of ourselves. Do I have Balance of Nature? Balance of Nature. Our friends over at Balance of Nature, we love those guys too. And just a shout out to them. balanceofnature.com. You can use code word Trish and get 50% off. Plus, you can get free shipping. And look, it's the best deal I've seen from them. We're going into the holidays. It's an important time to keep your health very much in focus. And one more shout out for the Trish Regan shop as we go into the holidays as well. You can get all your Trish Regan gear and merch and paraphernalia, etc., there to help express your support for the show. It is great to have so many people here. I'm just looking at all your wonderful comments. Don is on your case about liking and stuff. He also mentioned something about John Harwood. Yeah, that was funny. I saw that, Don. John Harwood, I used to work with actually at CNBC, and he had a tendency to carry the water, shall we say, of the Democrat administration. And it was becoming increasingly apparent, I think, more so in later years, not as much when I worked with him initially, but when you think of what he was saying as he went over to CNN, and I think he eventually got booted from CNN, but his tweets did not live so well because it's the same thing we were talking about, like the Andrew Weissman stuff over on MSNBC, like, oh my gosh, this guy is just great. Joe Biden, he's never, ever, ever, ever gonna, do something that might be morally reprehensible, but then what do you know? Sure enough, he did. And let me just say this, look, I get it as a mom, right? As a parent, if you have a chance to protect your child, you're always going to want to protect your child however you can. But what gets me is, why didn't he ever say that way back when? Why wouldn't he come out and say, look, I'm going to examine it in due time because he is my son. And listen to me, as a parent, if there's anything I can do for my son, and heck, I'm the president of the United States, maybe I try to do it. But instead, thank you, Billy Lynn. I love all you guys too. I love you too. But what ticks me off is that he sat there and lied to us, just like they lied to us about everything, right, guys? That's the whole motto of everything that they did. They lied to us over and over and over and over again, whether it was the laptop, whether it was the multiple cases against Donald Trump. They sat there and said that they were trying to protect the border when they weren't. For goodness sakes, and we're going to talk more about this tomorrow, the $225 million going to Pakistan at the Roosevelt Hotel. Pakistan owns the Roosevelt Hotel. This is kind of out of control, and it needs to stop. It needs to stop now. And this is what this administration is out there ready, willing, and able to do. So we cut the fat out of the government. Think of the fat. That's what Kash is talking about at the FBI. They're going to get rid of it. That's what Vivek is talking about. And Elon Musk is talking about. And let's have truth and transparency for a change. This is wonderful. We need this. And there's so much good that's going to come of this. So it's great to have you guys here. Ab, thank you so much for the kind words and all the support. It's just amazing. Oh, thank you. I'm reading all the comments here in real time. Peace of mind is like, oh, Trish misses working for the networks, right? Where she would have every word controlled by all of them. It's true. I would actually say, the best place where I could actually really speak out a little bit more freely is, and Leslie can't wait for Cash to get in there. The place that I could really speak out more freely, actually, in fairness, was probably Fox. I mean, I could speak out freely until I couldn't, right? Until I dared to say that this whole government shutdown and the hysteria that we were seeing on CNN every night was just too over the top. And the market shouldn't be trading off 2,000 points because we were going to be able to get through it, which we did, right? And I was right then, and I'm still right now. So I would say that I had a little bit more freedom at Fox, but only was still within certain parameters, because that commentary was checked by management literally every single night. And it would drive me crazy because 3 minutes before air, they're like, and we're changing this word and this word and this word. And now it's like, whoa, I just get to talk and I'm here with you and there are no scripts. I have literally an outline. Look at the scribble notes. I outline some of the sound bites I want to get to and the direction I want to take in this show. But this is authenticity in real time, live every single day. I do have the most wonderful fans. I'm looking at some of your comments there. It is absolutely true. The engagement here on this channel is off the charts, and that's all thanks to you guys. So make sure you leave a comment. I read them all. Even if you don't see me responding, please know that I do read them all. And I try to make sure I know where your heads are at. Look, we're not always going to agree on stuff. Hey, how could we? But I think that if nothing else, you'll always know exactly where I stand. Great to have you here, and I'll see you live back here tomorrow.